So welcome to our next session, The Power of Mentors. I am delighted to be joined by 5 people who have all proven themselves to be fantastic mentors. And the reason we know that is they were all nominated by their mentees for the inaugural ITT Future You Mentor of the Year. And from that huge response we had to that award, we had 5 people who were shortlisted. I'm really pleased they're here with me today. So in no particular order and going around the screen that I can see, I'd like to start with Karen Pocock, please.
Oh, first, I'm Karen Pocock and I'm co-owner and director at a company called Designer Travel.
Thank you very much. Jahan.
Hi, I'm Jahan Khan. I am an independent consultant. My company is CJJ Consultancy, and I've been working in travel for a very long time, and I love it.
Great, thanks. Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael. I've worked in travel for a very long time as well. Most recently, the last 15 years at Expedia Group, and currently I am the Global Director for Merchandising for the Hotels.com brand.
Thank you very much. Jenny?
Hi, my name's Jenny Kovacs and I run a business called GiftWish. I essentially am a visibility specialist, so I help people to stand out, people, brands and organisations to stand out. And many of my clients are actually travel clients and individuals who want to put themselves out there and find more business.
Thanks. And finally, Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny Waine. I'm the commercial manager at Hotelplan Group's Holiday Home division. And before that, I worked in international education for about 3.5 years and started a company called Perfect Weddings Abroad.
Thank you. Well, welcome one and all. I'm very excited to be hosting this session on such an important topic as mentoring. And my first question to you all is, why do you think mentoring is important? Who'd like to start? Jenny.
I don't mind starting. So to me, mentoring is really important because sometimes we want to tread a path that nobody we know in our friends and family circle have trodden. I mean, it's really great to be able to speak to someone who's done the thing that we want to do, whether it's professionally, you know, whether it's within our travel business. And even, I think, a great opportunity is missed for students because they spend all of this time studying and then they don't really know what the best next step is for them to take. So a mentor can really help to guide them and help them to get focused on the best way to navigate the travel path.
Jenny. I'm going to pick on Karen now.
Okay, I think it's a huge opportunity to impart a passion for something and to bring people on very quickly. So I think as a mentor, to be able to understand an individual's needs and to be able to work with them on a one-to-one basis just produces these most amazing results, just much quicker than you would get maybe through a more traditional method of training. So we just find we use it a lot with trainees where we bring them into our business and use one-to-one mentoring to accelerate progress, and it works exceptionally well. So we find that it works and it gives a lot back to both parties. I think the mentee benefits a lot, but I think as a mentor, you gain a lot from the whole process. It allows you to flourish in a way that I don't think many training approaches give you that same reward. So we find it works in our business really well.
What about you?
Yeah, I think mentors can help individuals to kind of fast track them through certain situations, so their experience helps them to spot things in advance rather than making the same mistakes time and time again, and that's really valuable. And also I think they can, because of that one-to-one kind of closeness that Karen mentioned, they can spot sort of professional problems but also personal problems and issues that the mentee might be going through, which then helps them more as an individual as well.
Michael, you have an interesting one in the fact that you mentor people all around the world, don't you? So that's an additional challenge, I would guess.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it very much in line with the theme that everyone's been talking about now, that still allows both sides to really develop from differences in different places where people are located and different experiences that they might have. But for me also with that mentoring partnership, it's also creating a safe place outside of formal training or a workplace or study where you can then actually discuss things really openly as ideas, but just always kind of take things from there. And that's what it's really about for me.
Great. Jahan, I mean, picking up on that, but also I think a point that Karen made, which I call reverse mentoring. So it's actually also what you pick up from them. So perhaps you want to sort of add on to that as well.
I think going back to what everyone's mentioned, with Danny, that we're helping them with identifying personal as well as professional problems that they might have. I think the best thing that we actually do is that we draw from our own experiences. Going back to what you were saying, we don't realise we're mentoring people. We are their mentors. I mean, and offering them solid advice. I think one of the things that I love doing is actually understanding them personally, and you almost tailor your experience by listening to them, and then you start challenging them. You're never actually telling them what to do. You let them build their own confidence from the solutions that you're kind of giving them or talking them through, but you build an awful lot of trust with them, and that trust goes on to them opening up more, and then you realise actually there's a lot more that I could be doing for this individual. So yes, Karen, I totally agree. It's the most rewarding because it's not training. It's not, something that's written about. You do it naturally, and you only do that by sort of really getting skin deep with your mentee and really fully understanding them.
And I would add on the reverse mentoring as well. I think the business has a lot to gain. So especially if it's a younger person, maybe they're an intern or they've just come into the industry, perhaps through kind of social media skills, being a digital native, and all of those benefits that they bring to the business. And we tend to think, of mentors as older and mentees as younger, which isn't necessarily the case. But I think the reverse mentoring is a great way where that can work kind of the opposite way around to what we normally expect.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's always a very reciprocal relationship, I think you're right. And sometimes people also make the assumption that there's somebody at the head teaching and telling everybody else what to do. And oh my gosh, yeah, you learn so much from people's experiences, from things that, people learn. And, travel still moves quickly. It's an industry of its own, and there are things that move quickly. And the rise of social media, my gosh, the young ones definitely know how to do that more than somebody like me who's a bit of a fossil now.
You can also mentor people with that, just like a one-off conversation. Don't realise that you actually help them and guide them. But some people may need just that to help them, whereas other people might need a little bit more time. It's not necessarily needy, but you do, when you start seeing the results, it's so, rewarding. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think makes, I mean, you've alluded to it already, a really good mentor, Karen? What do you think makes a good mentor?
I think a lot of empathy. I think actually having a really good, you sort of have a good mentoring relationship is a bit magical. You sort of get to know an individual really quickly. And I know you shouldn't make judgments by the first few seconds of having a conversation, but it's very difficult as human beings not to do that. So I think if there's a spark at the point of a meeting with a mentee or whatever the name you want to give to that role, I think it produces, it's sort of magical. It's an empathy, and it's fun. There's a patience with a good mentee-mentor relationship. There's a patience, there's a just passion and just enthusiasm for what you're doing. So it sort of grows over time and builds and develops.
Michael, what about you?
So I think in addition to that, it's really important as a mentor to really listen, because it would be very easy for me to kind of work with people to then say, well, this has been my background, this is what I studied, and all of these roles have been great, and follow this. But actually, you can be a really positive mentor on someone who's potentially even in a different industry or looking at a totally different sector of that industry, but just listening to what is it that's making them tick, what is it that they're wanting to achieve, and how can you help them shape that. So just that core piece of listening to what is it that I can then help them with, I think is really key.
Jahan, no, you got anything to add?
I totally agree with everyone. I think honesty and trust. Being a mentor is building a relationship just like you would build any other relationship. This one's very special because you're seeing the results of you talking, discussing, and they're almost like an extended part of you. But also, I think you should always have your switch on, so you should always be available for them. I mean, I get some of a call at 11 o'clock, and I'm like, at night, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to answer it, but I'll text back to know and acknowledge that we're always there for them. And I think it's really important, because what might not be that important to us might be life or death situation to them, but you have to calm them down, but just listen. Going back to what Michael was saying, listening is so important, but not being judgmental, being honest. I think even if with your honesty, you can actually give some hard home truths that they might not like to hear, but because you're mentoring them, they actually have to hear it. And they're more likely to hear it from you because you know them well.
And Jenny, I mean, I think that's quite a good point. How do you go about managing expectations? Because I think people have often go into the mentoring relationship with the kind of idea of what it should be. How do you find the best way of managing that process?
Well, one of the first things that I tend to do on a more formal basis is I'll ask them what they think they need, because a lot of the time there'll be lots of ideas, there'll be fears, there'll be concerns. So I start off with them, starting with them, find out what they need. And then the relationship, as many of us have alluded to, then progresses and then grows from that point onwards. I think one of the things that has been pivotal for me in mentoring other people has been being mentored myself. And, I'm as curious as a cat, and I'm always wondering, well, why did you do that? And not from a judgmental or a questioning place, but I think people are always interested in, well, what made you make that decision? Why did you take that turn? What made you think about doing something in that way? So for me, having been mentored myself, both paid and free, I think that's helped me to become a better mentor too. And especially with I resonate with the 11 o'clock at night. I've got a client who's currently in Australia. So quite often I'll get a message, it'll be really late at night, and we know the time differences, so we'll balance and catch each other at the right time. But I think that for me, the biggest piece is taking out any ego we might have about us doing something great for them, and actually, again, that being that reciprocal listening, finding out what they need and helping them, because all sorts of things come out of a mentoring relationship. And I don't know about you guys, but by the end of it, you kind of feel a bit like you're letting go of a child or something, and you don't want to let them go, but you do, So you build very close relationships during that time.
And Danny, I mean, I know you've had mentors in the past as well as being a mentor. What do you think is one of the most valuable things you picked up from your mentors that you have then been able to use in your own mentoring experiences?
I think it's the mentality of being a mentor. So it's about coaching someone, not about being a boss. And I think in a work environment in particular, it's easy for someone to be a boss and give them tasks to do and tell them what to do and kind of let them get on with it. But mentoring is more about actually engaging with them and this kind of two-way relationship. And that's what I have picked up myself, and that's what I've tried to do. And I think also when you're applying for job roles, or if you're looking at potentially having investors or people within your business, I would also say that when you're going through that process, that's a great opportunity to kind of also interview the person that is interviewing you and see, could they be a mentor? And you get a lot of benefit from that as well.
Yeah, you make an interesting point there about, the difference between being a boss and a mentor. And Karen, I mean, obviously that's something that might be a bit of a challenge for you, because obviously, you have a huge success in mentoring your more junior staff and your trainees. And do you find that enhances the relationship being their manager, or does it just mean you have to deal with it slightly differently?
Well, I think because our business is self-employed, all the guys that work with us, although we have an employed number of people, which is only about 20, we have about 100 people that are self-employed. So the relationship that you have with those individuals isn't really like a boss-employee relationship. It's very different. They're individuals. They own their own businesses. So you develop your skills accordingly. because telling someone who's self-employed what to do, and even trying to have any sort of mentoring role, it wouldn't work. So you adapt your style accordingly, and each individual requires a different approach. I don't find mentoring, I couldn't write a list down and use that repeatedly for everyone. It wouldn't work for me, because my style needs to be much more flexible and adaptable, and I find different characters and people need different styles of approaches. And sometimes you have to switch, I think, as an individual when you're having that relationship with someone, so that you get the best from them, and your approach varies quite dramatically. So I think it's flexibility, really. But I don't think my role as owning the business and the relationships we have with people, I see it as very individual and very bespoke and, yeah, tailored.
Great. And Michael, I mean, you're nodding there, and I'm guessing you have a similar thing, bearing in mind, as I said, you have a more of an international patch and when you're mentoring people in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, there are cultural differences to how my teams in Brazil operate to how the ones in America and in Hong Kong. And that sort of coaching approach, I think, just helps everybody involved achieve much more, because by building that trust and honesty, it does help shape how someone is operating in their role, but it just really helps them develop and think of things differently and helps them get there in a way that makes sense to them. And I think that doing that coaching as well, I think, you know, it's not always that you have to tell them exactly what they want to hear. We've talked a little bit about that, but I think by using that approach, it allows you to ask challenging questions at certain points, which make the individual, and I've had that done to me as well, where if you have that trust, you really then value that question where someone says, but think about this, Michael, how do you think that's impacting somebody else, or how's it impacting your next step? You appreciate that challenging question a lot more when you've kind of had it framed in that way. And I think, yeah, just as I'm working with lots of people from different countries and places all around the world, I think that that's really a common way to achieve it successfully.
That's great. I think, you know, a lot of people watching this will now understand maybe the value of looking for a mentor for themselves, and I sincerely hope so. So how should people go about trying to find a mentor, bearing in mind, you know, what people have said about, yes, in the workplace, but also sometimes outside of the industry, and there can be real benefits to that as well, in finding someone who might have a slightly different look on things because of their own experience.
I think it depends what role. That's a real difficult one, because to have a mentor, and if you see someone or you hear something that you actually like and you do a bit more research on that individual, there are people you can strike up conversations. Actually, social media is really good for that, and connecting with people on Facebook and LinkedIn too. I often read stories for totally unrelated industries, and it sparks something that you'd never think about in the travel industry, which is quite insular. And actually following them on LinkedIn and actually commenting on their articles, and then often becoming connected that way. I find that's quite an easy way and not very obtrusive. I think it can be something that's quite difficult. If you can do it in a nice, subtle way, it sort of helps. So for me, that would work. Social media and looking at what people are doing in the activities.
I think if it comes to like in person, then it's about not being afraid to actually ask someone for help, or ask someone maybe to do an introduction for you as well. I have people come to me that I think maybe they're hoping that I'm going to help them with something or maybe mentor them. And when they start to tell me a bit more about what they do, what the situation is, I realize that I'm not the right person for them perhaps, but there may be someone that I know that's got that experience and the right skills that could help them, and then I'm happy to connect them up.
Jenny, what about you?
So here's what flashes into my mind as we talk about this, and it touches on what's just been said. It's about the right tools for the right job. So quite often with social media now, and a lot of people approach me through various social media platforms, because they see something that I'm saying and it has some sort of resonance. So when you're looking for a mentor, a resonance is great. They don't actually need to always be in the same industry, but the right tools for the right job is, say, for example, you want to give better presentations. It could be somebody that's within the travel industry. How will you know that unless you've maybe seen them presenting before, or maybe you've seen something that they've done on social media, or you like the way they've positioned themselves. But the other piece, of course, is recommendation, personal recommendation. You know, some of the people that I've mentored might have gone on to recommend, you know, or recommend me to other people. And in the same way, as you know, as just been said, somebody might come to me and say, I really need some mentoring on this particular thing. Or sometimes they approach me and think it's coaching that they need when it is actually mentoring, you know. So helping them to understand the distinction between the two. Right tool for the right job to get them the best results that they need. So I think if I could give 3 tips, be very clear on what it is you need specifically. Don't just say something in travel. I work in travel, so it's that. Be very specific on what you need. Then think about the way that you want to make an impact. If you can make a personal impact, then again, look for that help in a mentor. And then the other thing is, because of the rise of social media, and because we do a lot less face-to-face as well, think about your story, not just about your own personal story, but maybe the story of, it could be your career, it could be where you want to go, it could be what you want to do next. And think about those things, and you'll start to see the people who are the right tools for the right job, and maybe the ones who might be better for something else.
Thank you for that. Well, we're nearly at the end of our session. I just want to say thank you very much again to all 5 of you. I think you've given some really good advice there, and kind of debunked maybe some of the myths around mentoring, and how valuable it can be, not just to the mentee, but also to you as the mentors. And I can honestly attest to that myself. Congratulations once again for being shortlisted for the ITT Mentor of the Year. You'll be hearing shortly who the actual winner is. So best of luck to you all. And thank you so much for your support for this conference. It's so important to all the people out there listening in. So I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next category is the ITT Mentor of the Year. And I will be announcing first the 4 shortlisted before I will announce the winner. So the 4 shortlisted are: from Holiday Home Division, Danny Waine; from CJJ Consultancy, Jahan Khan; from Designer Travel, Amanda Matthews and Karen Pocock; and from Hotels.com, Michael Long. And the winner is from GiftWish, Jenny Kovacs. Congratulations all.